What's up, everybody? Josh Bushing here with Fairly Awesome Podcast. Here with Ryan McDowell, my brother Nate Bushing.
Hey, what's going on?
And Staughton Wade. What's going on, guys? Yeah. Episode 5.
Yay, we made it.
Yeah.
Episode 5.
It's odd.
That's a good one.
We sort of peeked out.
Empire Strikes
I know,
Back.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Empire. This is good.
Empire Strikes Back?
Right?
Okay, I can go in.
Freaking awesome.
Harry Potter, Order of the Phoenix. Great final battle scene.
Also good.
Nice.
Rocky
Yeah.
5. Uh-oh.
Oh, you had to break it. You had to break it. I'm sure the 50 Indiana Jones will be fantastic.
Whenever
They made
that
a
comes
fourth?
out.
We can't do that because of the normalization.
Ah,
Sorry, guys. There was a clap
Stolen
in there.
thunder. Stolen. All right, so somebody said something about backwards compatibility.
I don't know who said that.
I don't either. I think it was you.
It wasn't me? Was it me that said that?
I think we were talking about that.
Okay.
So let us in on this.
I would like to submit to the podcast panel, if you will. That's what you are now, a panel.
the panel.
The discussion idea of talking about backwards compatibility and whether it really matters to you. In this next generation, obviously, it's kind of been ruled out. They've sort of said, let's not do the backwards compatibility thing. It just seems to sell. It's just a talking point more than it is an actual system requirement at this point. I think PS2 was one of their big things. They say, oh, you can play your PlayStation 1 games, and then ever since then they've really cornered themselves, if you will, because the more we go along with hardware and we have things that don't support the previous generation, for instance, the PlayStation 3, if you didn't buy it out of the box in the early days, did not include this extra chip that would allow you to play all your PlayStation 2 games. They tried to emulate it. It did not do as well. And then they just kind of said, you know what, cahoots, let's get rid of it. I would argue that it's one of the least used point, but everybody seems to be all up in hay about it.
So it's not a good focus for you. It's not something that you have to have
right.
on the console.
No, I don't think so. I think in the old days, yes. I until I got over my tendency of hoarding everything. You guys don't need these, right? I was going to reach, but I didn't want to hit the microphone. I don't. I don't think it's necessary anymore. And I think people are realizing that as well. I mean, if I wanted to play a PlayStation 3 game, for instance, I have a PlayStation 3 that works just fine, Mm-hmm. There is something to be said about not keeping around all this old hardware to sit around and play things. But I still think it's maybe not necessary for a system. But my other point with this was whether or not games should be museumified, is what, I don't know if that's really a term. I might be making that up. English language people correct me if I'm wrong. Basically...
That's okay, though. We'll run with it.
Oh, okay.
So what do you mean by museumified?
What I mean by that is, what if, say 20 years from now, that I want to play a game that I can't run anymore, on any sort of hardware. Should we be preserving these experiences? Because you can go back and watch movies from the 30s when they were made. Now,
I
would say you can. I say you can. They've been preserved, right?
If it's been re-released, right?
Okay,
I mean, certainly there's plenty of movies I'm sure that you can't watch because no one's bothered to create a copy that can be played on current media.
That's true. But it's the same thing with books, right? We still have editions of books that get re-released and they keep these things in libraries.
My book is eternally backwards compatible, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course it is, because it's paper until we have a book burning. It's done.
What do you think?
Fahrenheit 451 is right around the corner.
I'm an advocate of backwards compatibility. I'm a guy that thinks, why not? Why wouldn't you do it? And when they were trying to do the PS2 to PS3,
yes,
part of the problem was their DRM strategy on the PS2 and whatnot was different different lasers, right, for reading
Yes.
the
Different, like,
DVDs.
Yeah,
right?
colored discs or
So-
whatever.
Yeah, right. So they had, then they did the same thing on the PS1, but they pretty much mastered it with PS2 backwards compatibility on PS1 discs.
Yep.
I think there was like one color that you couldn't do with PS1, but it was largely backwards compatible. It was like 95 or something like that percent compatible with PS1 games. I don't know. It was something that to me, okay, you ditch the old hardware, you get new hardware. I don't keep a 386 in the basement to play my Castles game and
Right.
right. So to me, No, I am not going to be using it all the time. I still want to be playing the latest and greatest games, but occasionally I want to go back and play Dark Forces or X-Wing or whatever.
Exactly.
And I think it's going to be the same thing with consoles. And it's true because they re-released these games that were on previous gen. You know what I mean? So that the desire is there. They're kind of getting around it by doing re-releases or HD releases.
Well, that's how they make more money, right?
Sure,
But do you think that gets overdone? Like the re-releases.
Oh,
like
it
how many
absolutely
times
is.
have they re-released Final Fantasy like 6?
I know, but actually I think it's underdone. I do. And here's why. A great album is released over and over again on whatever media is currently available. Now that doesn't really apply anymore.
Okay, so Elvis on
music's all
vinyl,
digital.
8-track.
Yeah.
It was
cassette.
like the Frank Sinatra's, whatever best hits. It was going to be probably you could find it every single form of media out there. Now digital, and even that, it's on MP3 and it's going to be on the next, whatever the highest option is at any given time, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because it's classic. So I would like to see the same thing with games. The HD version of games. Like, I can't believe we don't have Grand Theft Auto Vice City as like an HD re-release. Like, that game is a great game,
Yeah.
except for it's kind of difficult to play now because your expectations for what the graphics and
Sometimes you have to
should
go
be.
back and have some nostalgia about it as well. Like,
Yeah.
I went back maybe 2 years ago and I played, I busted out the Nintendo 64 and played GoldenEye.
Yeah.
GoldenEye is shocking how bad the graphics
Oh,
are.
and at
it
the
is.
time we all thought it was great.
I know.
Like
Like
the
the
hand,
greatest
the
thing
hand
since
is just
sliced
like a
bread.
fleshy blob. Holds a black
Isn't your
a
hand just a
pencil
fleshy
that
blob?
sticks out.
Yeah. Yes, it's
It
like-
does look like the
Like a Lego
Now-
guy with a
It's supposed to be an AK and it looks like a pencil.
But I would actually assert to you that is not that good of an actual game.
And see, I still enjoyed it. I just found the graphics hard to get around. I still really had fun playing GoldenEye.
the controls are
Because of
horrendous.
nostalgia.
It is, though.
But because of nostalgia,
Yeah.
not because it was this incredible
Now-
quality game.
now,
Like, okay, Dr. Mario doesn't need an HD re-release.
Right.
I can go play Dr. Mario or Tetris or whatever and be just perfectly happy. But a game like that is kind of... It's almost like going back and watching The Matrix now.
Yeah.
You go back and watch The Matrix now, it's not that impressive.
Sure.
But when you first watched it, it was mind-gasm. I mean, so this is... Exactly. So this is a problem that some games, it works just to re-release. Some games you have to update. You have to, in order to meet today's gamer standards.
That's true. And I don't necessarily know if it's the graphics that I'm more interested in. It's just the experience altogether being preserved. Yeah, there are some, we discussed movies and things like that could be lost that aren't maybe as important, but should we make it a precedent to preserve these, though? Do you guys think these are experiences that deserve to be preserved?
I trust the market to preserve what was good.
Yeah.
The market doesn't have a huge say in this, though, because even with dollars flailing, the companies still have to allow it. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's...
What company doesn't release a game if they think they can make the money doing it?
Yeah, they will do re-releases.
We might have the opposite problem. We might have people making games.
Well, I was going to say, for instance, Earthbound was just recently re-released on Wii. And it has been, the download store, right? The eShop.
Yeah, their
so
eShop.
this game has been rare to find, the cartridge, the original SNES, for forever. And it's been one of those kind of like underground, like, oh, let's go.
Everybody loved it.
Yeah, if you go to like a trade store where they trade video games, you try to find that. That's like the holy grail, like that and Chrono Trigger on SNES. But Chrono Trigger's been released a lot more than Earthbound, because Earthbound, I think, didn't sell as well.
Because you're at the mercy of what the game companies will sell, and they're not always right.
Yeah.
Right.
So no, I don't think that market demand is always seen by the gurus that should know.
Yeah.
And I think, in some cases you say, well, what about my game? Like GTA Vice City. Maybe you do think it should be re-released. And even with backwards compatibility, a re-release has value.
It was re-released for like iPad and iPhone, I think.
I don't know if they updated any.
But I don't think the graphics were ever
This is
changed.
the thing. That's the problem, is that it's distractingly bad because of
The graphics.
what it is. Again, I think with I guess you could call them strategy games, it doesn't really matter that much. Like
Because they're sprites. It's not
Right.
3D.
It doesn't have to look as good as... Dr. Mario doesn't have to look like Angry Birds. It doesn't have to, because the concept of the game is simple enough.
Yeah.
Wolfenstein Original, however, is painful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I'm a little disappointed at this point. I do feel like it's for money, not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right. Like why? Okay, Nintendo. I mean, we look at this and we mentioned Sony. Who we didn't mention with backwards compatibility is Nintendo.
Oh, wow.
They've actually been the ones that have pulled it off with the most fluidity throughout their devices. You look at. We talked about it before with the different Game Boy or mobile iterations, but when you looked at the original DS, went back and played Game Boy Advance games,
I did.
right? And it worked. It worked. It wasn't like, oh, there are a couple that don't work, and you have to watch out for those, or if the Pokemon Special Edition doesn't work on it. No, it just worked.
Yeah.
And they're doing that now with when the 3DS came out, it played all the DS games.
Yeah.
And when the Wii came out, some of these you can take on the who cares, but when the Wii came out, it played all GameCube games.
It's nice.
And it just worked.
Yeah.
Versus all these caveats of previous games, like Xbox 360 did not play
Everything.
right. It did not play everything.
Well, I think ultimately it did once it had like updates where, like, I played Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which came out on Xbox on Xbox 360 because it had some kind of update that allowed it to run, and I can't remember exactly.
It's still there's still a list. They still only have a certain. It's a limited list.
Honestly though, this goes back to the original question. I think of two games that I've played, like Madden. I think it was 95 or something like that, where I played it on the next gen. Well, I had it broken. Like, I had the exact plays I could run and go for like a touchdown every time. So why wouldn't I play that? It was fun. It was like, oh, it's 136-3. So and then
Seems legit.
And then yeah, exactly. And then GTA Vice City. So it was just those two experiences. But other than that, like, who's gone back and actually?
I was gonna say,
depends on what you. It depends
I have
on what
a
you grew
list
up
on my
about.
hand too. Yeah.
And yours are different.
Well, I was gonna say I have like 4 games that I've gone back on my PS3 and played with my PS2 compatibility. It was like one of them, funny enough, was a collection, or 2 of them were collections. They were the Mega Man collection, Anniversary Collection, which had all 1 through 8 of the original Mega Mans, and then Mega Man X Collection, which was 1 through 6. So I played like both of those, which are collections of previous collections to update. So once again, going to your argument that it's being made to make money. And then I think the other 2 were a couple Robotech games back on the PS2. But honestly, other than that, I haven't even put another PS2 game in my PS3 to play.
I think we'll see it more often because of digital downloads. I think that because you don't have to print a disc and ship the disc and artwork.
I really
and
hope
everything
so.
else. I think that you'll see
that'll
it.
be
Yeah,
nice.
all you have to do is pay somebody to
I'm okay
get the
with
coding to work.
I'm even okay
streaming.
with if
Right.
I don't know about that, but if I
the
did
old stuff. If
Like
they
Netflix.
don't do any.
If they did Netflix, like Gaikai for Sony, it's supposed to be like the Netflix of games, right? You could stream it to your...
yeah, there is a feature there.
Yeah,
that
it's
allows you
supposed to be for PlayStation 4.
I think for anything fast paced, that's going to be a problem, though.
Yeah,
but we'll
twitchy
see.
stuff.
We'll see how that goes.
I have a feeling we're going to have to get faster internet before that's realistic.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But
Google.
I'm okay with if I owned, Legend of Zelda, cartridge.
Yep.
I accept that if Nintendo, if the Wii U comes out and says backwards compatible with all previous games, but it's digital license, so you're going to have to buy it. But then from then on, it'll work as a Nintendo digital license. I'd be perfectly okay with that.
Yeah.
I would buy it again because I want, I wouldn't even waste my time on loading it if it wasn't a game I cared about. So if it was
It's true.
$5, if it was like phone game competitive, where we're talking about the $1 to $5 market on playing these games.
Which is funny.
Which they don't have to do anything, really. They just have to make an emulator that works on these.
I was looking the other day because I had heard that Final Fantasy VI was being remade for like Android and iOS. And
that would be awesome.
I found Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah, it would.
Right? Final Fantasy IV on the Play Store.
Yeah.
$16.
What?
Yeah, $16.
Way expensive.
I know.
Final Fantasy II, I do have on my iPhone.
Yeah.
$2.
Wow.
Huh.
So
I
don't get that. Unless are they adding specific stuff?
To be honest though, I would pay $19.99 for Final Fantasy VI download. I really would. The game is that good.
It is.
It is one of the best
HD
Final
remake.
Fantasies.
And again,
they are. There's tweaking stuff. They've changed some of the stuff around. 4 looked like it was
but
added.
honestly, they don't need to. It's
Right.
because it's an RPG. It's not fast paced enough.
Yeah.
And there is a certain amount of nostalgia where it's funny that the drawn like stylized version of the characters doesn't look a thing like the actual game characters.
Absolutely,
That kind of. So cool. that works. Mr. Never appearing on this podcast was talking to me the other day, and
that's his new name.
And he told me he's actually traded in and bought Battlefield Bad Company 2 like 15 times.
It is a little ridiculous. And he did the same thing with the first
That's a little excessive.
Black Ops.
Yeah, so okay.
Why?
Well, because he decided
He's a trader.
he never
He's a
wanted to
game
play
trader.
it again.
Okay.
Yeah. But so now he's just bought the digital license. He's
And now he
covered
can't.
for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is what I can imagine because we've made downloading games so easy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Well, it's like the
Brilliant.
Steam library, right? Funny story. I have Final Fantasy VII, the PC version from Steam. They just recently released it like 6 months ago or something maybe. I bought that. Now I have it, everywhere I go on my PC, and I never have to worry about that again. And hopefully, maybe that is the way to do it, is having it preserved via PC or whatever. Emulation in the past has been a way to preserve
But again,
games.
I trust companies in
The
market.
market. I think
I trust them to
you'll
bear
eventually
it out.
get
I
there.
really do. I trust them to bear it out.
Okay.
Some people have changed things up. There was like a fan stuff. I don't know.
There's
It's cool.
There's going to be very few people, and there will be, some gaming Nazi developer that refuses to sell the rights,
Right.
to let the game be released. But he'll eventually die, and our kids can play it.
See, but we would have an argument about the fact that, like Star Wars, George Lucas does not preserve that in the right way. Because he's changing things, right? So it's like,
Well, it's all Disney now.
It's interesting.
Some people get nostalgic about things and they're like, why did you change the graphics? Why are you HD updating instead of leaving it in the preserved format it was?
I desperately want for Disney, when they come out with episodes 7 and on, to re-release theatrical version of episode 4, so that my children never have to see Greedo shoot first.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, does that experience? Do you guys feel like the developer's original vision for it is the way that it should be preserved, or is it
I
okay
think
to
if they
have
want to
these
do HD
off-topic
release.
here.
I don't mean to.
I think if they want to do HD release, I think there should be that. And Halo
Anniversary
Yes. Edition did a very good job of saying, hey, have it both ways. Here's the original one, port it over, and you could do that like
switch it between the two.
You could switch it between the two. So to me, that's how you do it. Same with movies, same with games. If you want an HD release,
you get both.
Yeah, right.
If
Like
you do it right.
I played God of War HD remake or release, and it was pretty. I thought it was okay. Just the cutscenes were disturbing to me, because the cutscenes were still PlayStation 1 graphics, but
2.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go through and do some of that stuff, I think it's fine to do that. You just leave a mode to play the original one. They've got enough space to hold how little
Right.
that actually took up with those pathetic graphics.
So that's all good with talking about like backwards compatibility and maybe adding value. What about like gaming value? Like, is there a timepiece that you are, or a time limit or some sort of amount that you want to get to for your money?
So this is interesting because the other day when I beat Grand Theft Auto 5, I looked at my total character time, and I discovered that I put 35 hours into the game. And I personally feel like I did a lot of the side stuff. I didn't go, win all the races, and I didn't discover all the collectibles, but I did all the kind of side story missions that you could really do before you get to that point. So $60 and 35 hours. Mm-hmm. And I think of how long it took me, for instance, to beat Skyrim in the same manner, and I had probably 80 hours before I beat the story. So it was kind of ridiculous, the time difference between the two. Now, but at the same time, if you go play Modern Warfare or Call of Duty or whatever, you play just the story mode, you're like 6 hours and you're done. Yeah. 8 hours maybe if you drag your feet.
Yeah, I would say 35 actually is a high end on a game nowadays. But I always look at it this way. It's a movie, right? The same price you pay like what? $14, maybe not that much, but a bunch of money for a non-matinee movie to go see it, and you get maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours of entertainment versus a game
But everybody feels swindled by the movies, don't they?
Yeah.
Everybody complains.
I mean, how could you not? Yeah.
But what's interesting is if you go sit, front row at a concert for a band you love, it could be $100 for that seat.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's still, a couple hours entertainment.
That's very true.
Ish.
Yeah.
Pre-bands and whatnot, maybe 4 hours or 5.
But it's also specialized, right? That concert is being played that night, and it's the only time that band... Yeah, they're going to play the same songs. They're going to probably play the same set. And honestly, because I'm in a band, I know that those guys rehearse what they say to you. I mean, everything that they've done, it's not a unique experience to you, but it feels like it because they could flub up a note or they could play a solo completely differently that night. It's supposed to be tailored for you. That's why you pay the money for that artist to be there. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you. I mean, the value add for a game, I think you still get the most value, even if it's something like Modern Warfare where you pay $60 and you only get 4 hours, but you have that multiplayer experience that you could extend, like Battlefield 3. Like we've paid for all of the DLC.
It's funny, I've never played the single player for Battlefield 3.
You're not really missing that.
I know, but I'm just saying
it was okay, but yeah,
it was Modern Warfare.
I didn't have to feel the desire to play it because I always liked
Geek Confession. Ryan loves
Geek
it.
Confessional. I actually really liked the storyline from Battlefield 3.
Ryan Fast.
Wait, what? I thought it was going to be
like Jesus wept. Ryan Fats.
It's in the Bible.
Yes. So then, judging from what we're all basically saying here, I think that, except for maybe television, you could argue that Netflix, you get more hours per, dollar than anything.
That's true.
But gaming has a ton of $60. And I've Skyrim, I've got 200 hours in that game, and I spent, with
I
DLC.
have like 128 hours.
I've gotten my money's worth.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
for sure.
I do think it would be interesting if some of these reviewers, I know the big reviewers that are out there typically do a 1 to 10 rating, and they'll do like the decimal system or whatever to tell you what the rating system is of the game.
Yep.
What I wish they would do, because most of these rating houses or review places will they'll beat the entire thing, or at least to the extent that you did. Maybe not 100% completionist.
As fast as they can. Yeah, because they have to do it fast.
But they beat the game, and maybe they did some other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like to see somebody come out with on my $60, here's what I think it's worth. And I think it's okay for them to say, like a Skyrim, for somebody to say, it's worth $100.
It's worth 100, yeah.
Or worth 120 even.
Duke Nukem,
I got more paying
you.
Maybe, there's one
forever.
There's one Xbox 360 game that Chris and I got, Black Site. And
I know this game. I know this game.
I don't know this game.
It is probably the worst Xbox 360 game I have ever bought.
And you loved every minute of it.
I am now right here demanding a what the fuck review of Black Site.
Yes.
Yeah,
just to make Chris go back and play
it. It basically, Chris and I did that game co-op, and I'm gonna say we beat the game in...
If you just heard a toot on the microphone here, no one is admitting to it, but we all know it was Nate.
No, I seriously didn't. I thought Oh, it's the table. Okay, I was like, what the hell was that?
Fart intermission.
Yeah. Jesus.
Sorry, back to Black Site.
So Black Site, Chris and I played this co-op, and I think we maybe got 3.5 hours in before we beat Black Site, and we were like, what? what the hell do you mean 3.5 hours? And there is the multiplayer is almost non-existent. In fact, there's
The
a
server's
story.
probably off.
There's a story that Chris tells about Black Site that's kind of hilarious, where he went through and tried to get some of the, because he's a 1,000 gamer score hunter, I guess. You know, he goes through to try and get that 1,000 gamer score, which for PlayStation users would be like the platinum trophy.
Right.
So he tried to go through, and some of them were made multiplayer achievements, and he's outraged because a lot of these achievements require you to play online and complete so many hours in this, as if it was going to be such a mass hit that, you know, it would garner the type of gameplay that you know, Call of Duty or Halo or whatever would get. And so he's sitting there, and the way the multiplayer system works is it's drop in, drop out. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have enough people, you can still run around and kill people and whatever, but the game hasn't started yet, so no scoring, right? Mm-hmm. So he never started a game.
Wow.
He got in there, and there would be a couple people come in, and they'd run around and kill each other, and then when they found out, you know, 15 minutes later that nobody was coming in, they'd just drop out. So never got those achievements.
Wow.
He said okay, so in that game, I would say that no, that game was worth all of a phone game, you know, $2. Now that is one thing that I think skews this whole argument is phone games, right?
Yeah.
It changes the entire market, and I understand why the big guys are worried about this. You know, the EAs, the you know, Activisions, whatever, because the phone market, if you're $5, that's outrageously priced. You even scoffed at the $16. I mean, we just got done talking about that. The $16.
Yeah, for
$16.
$16 for a phone game.
Yeah.
That
is really high for a phone game.
But at the same time, we
$16.
paid $16 for. I mean, that's the thing too. You're getting a game that's like 30 years old. Well, not 30, but 20.
But if you found it in a bin,
I don't think we have in our lifetimes bought a new game for $16. A new game just released for $16.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
that is true.
That's a good point.
I'll give you that.
But if you found it in a bin, you know, if you found Final Fantasy in a bin, and it's like, oh, guess what? This will work on your phone. You know, digital license or whatever. You'd be like, hot damn, you know, you'd run off with it. But because it's on the market at $16, and you know everything else that's on there is price competitive at either free, you know, and they try and get people with microtransactions, and you try and stick it to the man by, you know, grinding through. I'm not paying it.
How is your Candy Crush grinding going?
No, I play Real Racing 3, which is a free game, but you don't get. It takes a lot of grinding to get through that game.
I think your argument makes sense. Like this is kind of what happened to the middle AAA, you know, market has kind of dropped out because they were releasing games that were arguably less value than, say, another AAA like a Skyrim, but then we had, you know, Two Human, or I don't know, Two Human,
sure,
or something like that, which was honestly not as good of a value, but it was still good. You know, it was a decent enough quality, but it was not worth $60 compared to, you know, this is why we should have had a middle price point where a 30 or 40, but Xbox and consoles and other, you know, Sony even, but they set a price and they want, that's the price.
See, this is actually part of the problem, is that the games that were released that did have that lower price point weren't like AAA minus games.
Yeah.
They were like Fs.
Yeah, and people
they were bad.
And people think in their mind when they see, oh, $40, it must not be as good, even if it is as good, or a middle game.
But
that's the problem. It's more a society problem.
I've never played one of those just released games that wasn't AAA for $60 and had it be good. They're not good.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. They're the ones that are $60 that are okay, or this is not too bad. The ones that are cheaper than that, when they just release them, are always terrible.
That's because they don't. That's the price point is always set probably by the publisher, and the publisher is probably like, well, we got to release it for $60. We got to make some money back on this thing because blah blah blah. You know, it's not really
it's the
deemed
standard
by the
price
developers.
point,
yeah, even if you know that it hasn't been, you know, they haven't put the price in.
But I think gamers, whether they have an exact formula for that, but I think you're right. There is if you get through a game in 15 hours and you're like, man, was that really worth $60? And I guess it depends, doesn't it? Because Portal is a short game.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Portal isn't $60.
No,
it by itself.
I mean, it came with the orange box, which was the biggest value you would say ever in gaming, like the most that you could get.
Should be ashamed if you didn't get it.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, Portal was great. I loved it.
I think it was.
Keep watching next week, and you'll understand that. I think that what we really need at this point is simply to start having multi-pricing structures for games, and really, because, like, for instance, Modern Warfare 2, I bought specifically because I was told the main storyline is actually pretty good, and it actually is. Mm-hmm. And I think I bought it for $20 or like $15.99 at GameStop, and I got my money's worth. Even though I only played it for like 10 hours time, it was worth every dollar because it was an intense, high action experience. It was like, going and it was like watching a whole season of 24 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can have a shorter game that's really high intensity, but you just have to charge less. You have to. But right now they don't.
Do you think that we can force them to charge less if more reviewers or people that are in the media or whatever could, tell you how much that they think that the game is worth?
See, that was actually an awesome point. You know what? FAPcast is going to do that. Fairly Awesome Podcast is going to start giving dollars you should spend for games.
Yeah, that would actually be a good
Seriously, because genuinely, that isn't out there that I've ever seen, and that's a really good thing.
Like, wait for this game to get to $30 before you buy it.
They do that on some review sites I've seen, but it's per individual reviewer. He might say it, or he or she might write about it here and there. Say it's not.
Yeah, you're right. Like, some people will say, "Hey, when this goes on the used rack, buy it." You know? But there's no just.
Which is funny because I did that with a whole system, like the GameCube. I stayed away from Nintendo for a long time, and GameCube had already been out, and then they were getting ready to launch the Wii, so they dropped all the prices. And I bought one for it was like $100, and it came with 2 controllers. And I played the crap out of those games because we could get them for $10 a piece.
I got it already. I got your scale for you. Don't buy things day one. Don't buy it unless you absolutely want to play multiplayer with your friends or whatever. If it's single player, wait for it. What do you got? I mean,
there's a couple of things.
Seriously.
First of all, you only have 2 months before the spoilers kick in.
That's true. That's true. But but that's the thing. Seriously, you could save so much money.
Far too committed to that series. I had to get that game day one. Any Elder Scrolls, any Fallout, I have to get day one. Mass Effect 4 eventually.
Why?
Because I want to be part
of a conversation.
Why do I have to? Right? Walking Dead is now on, and if you don't catch that episode, you're behind the culture.
That's true. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
but that's why I said multiplayer is more important. Like I said, for me, I always look at it this way. I'm like, can I have this experience later? For instance, like Last of Us. I played it a couple months after it released. That was a huge wave. Everybody talked about it, blah, blah, blah. There were spoiler casts everywhere for it. I waited and then played it 2 months later. Still had an amazing single-player experience. I mean, you guys have played it, so I haven't been able to talk with you about it, but I kind of knew that going in.
But now here's the deal, though, is that you weren't part of the Last of Us culture, because there is no Last of Us culture. It just came out. It just started. Now, Last of Us 2, I'm assuming that there will be a second unless they killed everybody. I mean, maybe they did. I don't know. Ellen Page died. But either way. I have no idea. I haven't played it. But if it does come out, Last of Us 2, there will be a lot more pressure on you to participate, assuming you liked it.
It's true.
Participate in culture of Last of Us.
Like Mass Effect 3, I didn't play the DLC until I had heard, or the Mass Effect 2 DLC, until I had heard that there was a part in it that if you hadn't played it, the beginning of Mass Effect 3 wouldn't make sense. So I went and played it. That was a pressure for me. I would not have bought that DLC and played it had I not known that. So there you go. Your argument stands.
Now I need to know that.
Your argument stands.
When I get to Mass Effect 2.
You should play all the DLC for all of them.
Yeah. It is good DLC, I will say.
They're pretty much all good.
Just
I didn't
so
mean to
you know, this
tangent
is
that.
episode
you're
5, and we're trying to get Josh to play Mass Effect. And if he hasn't done it by episode 7, we get to slap him.
That's like a month.
What?
Yeah. Slap that, right?
When did we start this?
You didn't know that?
No.
We're doing the slap that on this podcast.
I was already betrayed earlier tonight. I don't know.
So maybe when we do the reviews for games, we will have to do that. We'll have to give
I don't think there's any
dollar
question
value.
because people, I guess we look at ourselves as the kind of voice of gaming culture at our kind of general age bracket. You know, none of us have really ever gotten into Pokemon, right?
I played it.
Okay,
I played it.
All right, but you're not like, oh, thank God X and Y. So we're kind of past that point. So that kind of area, if we want it, I'm sure that it's out there. If you guys want to hear about it, please tell us, because I really do think that this is something that people need to have.
Yeah. Well, especially people that don't pay attention to a lot of media sites. That's true. Maybe our audience is more people that are more informed, though. You know, like they are people that read gaming sites and stay up
Look
on
at that,
knowledge.
we're meta podcasting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Podcasting about podcasting.
Yeah.
That's what made Empire so good.
What?
Bringing it back, Josh. Episode 5, halfway through the show.
Dang.
Yeah.
Nice. Right?
Host skills +1.
All right. RPG
Nice.
skills. That we have RPG elements in FAP casting. Now with RPG elements. It's on the box. Value add.
So
I would pay that.
speaking
for
of
99 cents.
so gaming value, and you're playing the games, and all of a sudden, boop, boop, you unlock something. You get to another spot,
Pavlovian response.
right? You level up, or some sort of little like gadget, something is given to you, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In Xbox, it's a gamer score point.
Yes.
Ryan, you think trophies and achievements just add anything to the game, or do you think that they're just
To me,
little tidbits for OCD people? Like,
I kind of think that they are. I am not an achievement hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play a game through thinking I got to get this. I will have the caveat that when I played Assassin's Creed, I enjoyed it so much that I did go flag hunting and I got all the flags. So
And that one was rough.
That was rough.
Yeah, the first
But-
one for sure.
which
That was
Assassin's
the
Creed
one.
1 had
Yeah.
the
The
flags.
first one had flags.
Yeah, and they
Yes,
were
I don't.
all-
But I don't sit there and look at what the achievements are.
That pre-YouTube?
No.
No, it wasn't,
It was
right?
like
It
right
wasn't?
about the same time.
Okay, I was trying to think, because now you can pretty much reveal any kind of secret thing, just,
Oh, there was a map. I was using a map.
Okay.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's like the Dark Ages. No, it's like Assassin's Creed
but
came
it's
out in 2007.
even if you had a map,
was close.
even
Yeah.
if you had a map, there were 400 flags to find.
Holy fucking shit.
yeah, that's awesome.
We're gonna have to bleep that one out. That was quite severe there. No, anyway,
I didn't. Wow.
400
Yeah, it was-
flags.
it was a lot to find, and even if you had it, because the problem was if you picked up any of it, right? And maybe this is the case with some other achievements, but if you picked up any of them, the problem was you didn't know which ones you got and which ones you didn't get. So when you
Yeah.
went back later with a map and you were like, "Where's this flag at?" Oh, I must have already got it. So then you skip over it, and then you find out later, I didn't get it. It was behind the door or whatever. You know,
That's
like,
the worst. I hate that. I hate
versus
that.
if I had started a new copy, a new game and just went through, I'd have been able to find the flags
Of
the first
course,
time.
of course.
But anyway, I don't look at gamer because you don't get anything for it. If there was incentive, like if you 1,000 gamer score a game, you get
Hummer. The truck, you pervert.
Wait.
The truck.
That escalated quickly.
well, hot damn! I'm
You're like
instead
1,000
of being
gamer.
an achievement hunter.
Yeah, 1,000 gamer score. Hummer.
No, like if you.
I won on your board.
I don't know what you'd have to do to really incentivize those that are not OCD about it to get into achievement hunting.
Maybe like a free DLC or something like that. But there's something.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
That would be cool. That
That would be
why don't
good.
they do
No,
that?
or the other thing that's fairly cheap for these companies to do would be random drawing. By the second month of the game coming out, all those that have 1,000 gamer score entered in a contest to win X.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So if you did something like that, I might be a little bit
like
more
a sign
incentivized.
poster or something like that.
Sure.
Or whatever, yeah.
Sure.
Could be.
Or the other thing would be if you got like Microsoft credit for playing a game that much. Generally going to be talking up a game that you're playing that much.
Yeah.
You know? So maybe you're marketing for them.
I feel like there was a bit of news about Microsoft giving something for gamer score recently. Is it like within the last couple months?
There was
it
supposed
like
to be some kind of thing where they gave you like a ranking, and
Yeah.
then it did, but that
it's still useless.
hasn't done anything.
They didn't give us space bucks or anything like that. Microsoft space bucks. That's what I call them. The points before they switched over to the monetary system, you had to buy the Microsoft space bucks. 1 million space bucks.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
I did just get that email that confirmed that they switched over.
Over to the
Yeah.
financial currency.
But I don't know. Achievements to me, they're not really giving me. They're not really incentive for me to explore any more of the game than
It's
I would
the
have
carrots on the
otherwise.
stick.
For me, it's bragging rights
Yeah.
to say that you did it.
There's
Now,
a lot of that.
and I don't have the OCD about it. But there was one game where I decided. I don't know if I've told this story on a Fairly Awesome podcast or not. But I decided that with this console generation going out, I would take my favorite game of this generation, Skyrim, and get every achievement and put a lot.
You put a shallot on it.
I put a lot.
Well, I didn't see that one coming.
A lot of time into that game recently in order to get every achievement. And I think there's like 90 achievements, and I had 87 of them, or 88. I was right there. Right there at the end. And one of the achievements is that you have to collect every Daedric artifact. And I collected them all.
But there's like 15, right?
There's 15.
And it bugged out.
And the achievement didn't pop.
I hate that.
Like
that is
all
the
15
worst.
sitting in your inventory.
I had every one of them, literally had them all in a chest. Went back and replayed, and it didn't pop. I mean, I was so mad about it. I emailed Bethesda.
Your game didn't give me the achievement.
No. But basically that was. Hey, this just happened. I can prove that I have them all. What's going on? And they're like, well, contact Microsoft. Maybe they can manually pop it for you. And I'm like, okay, all right, that seems fair. So I did, and they're like, no, we have no control over that. It's coded in. So basically, I wasted, I would say, probably 40 hours of game time, because some of them you can't get until you're a certain level.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so you have to get to like level 30 before you can even get it. So that was the one time in my life, the only time that I've ever actually said I'm going to actively seek out achievements.
And it trolled you
hard.
hard.
It trolled you hard. Yeah, I was going to say, now you know it's a fool's errand. I mean, I'm very guilty of this. One of my big things was doing... Well, Assassin's Creed 2 was one of the few 1,000 gamer scored. I also was very big about doing the Halo games, was getting at least 1,000 gamer score, if not more. The thing I hate and bugs my OCD to hell is that they add more. They're like, oh, we'll just add 350 now. Go play multiplayer.
DLC.
Go play multiplayer. And I'm like, God damn it. And I can't get rid of that. From like, because when I played it, it was 1,000 and I hit it and I'm done. I don't want to be held to it. And now I don't even care anymore, because I've just learned to turn my OCD off.
Halo 3 was the beginning of the end on that.
Oh,
one,
yeah.
wasn't it? Because it's almost 2,000 gamers now.
It's like 1,750 or something ridiculous.
It's something really high because of the add-ons.
I think the hardest, the hardest one I've seen to achieve would have been Mass Effect 3. Because the multiplayer requirements in order to get the maximum gamer score in that game are insane. If you've never played Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, it is the hardest multiplayer.
I'll agree with that one. That's probably the hardest achievement I've seen, other than the completely unrealistic, ungettable Black Site. Multiplayer achievement is just not possible. But like the ones I've seen that are just like game companies totally trolling the gamers are like Gears of War.
Yeah, the kills, the number of kills. You know what? I hate multiplayer achievements. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, you can say what you want about achievements, but I freaking hate multiplayer achievements because of that reason. It's like, if it's skill-based, especially like get this many kills, if you suck at the game, you're never going to get 1,000 gamer score. regardless of if you have the OCD enough to want to achieve that. Like, you can't even go and get it.
Yeah, you know what, though? So, I mean...
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
If you
like,
suck at the game, you don't deserve it. Honestly. Like, I mean, that sounds kind of
It cuts people out of the 1,000
Yeah.
gamer score, though, if that's what they care about.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you're not good at it, I'm kind of glad that you can't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds mean, but...
World of
Oh
Warcraft
my God.
added
Talk about
achievements.
Ugh.
And that was a mistake. That ridiculously took over my life for a solid.
What did you get
period
for
of
it?
time. Nothing. Just the achievements of getting them.
So do you agree? Your original
but
question
he,
to
like,
me was,
He
are
played
they
dress up Ken
OCD?
doll with his
Are they
Yeah,
for
I
OCD?
think
what he got for it.
I really think like it's one of those where it just keeps going and your number just keeps getting bigger and it doesn't really do anything for you.
There's kind
Doesn't
of...
it give you
but
tabards or something like that, though?
Some
There's,
stuff.
like,
I mean, there are rewards
drops.
within the game that it'll give you,
Titles.
like titles and mounts were a big one that I chased after, and like collecting certain amounts of things gave you more of that thing you were already collecting, and you're like, oh.
not
So
Carrot on a stick. Hello.
seriously,
That's
and
wow for you.
But some people, there's some like hardcore raiders that if you don't have certain achievements, they won't let you raid with them unless you have that done.
Wow.
Well, that's
So-
actually... No, but actually,
Because
that's
that's
a
proving.
Exactly. It's a good way to
they're
make sure you're
proving,
not just...
that you're an actual legit raider.
Oh, so,
Okay.
Okay, there's a hidden promise, maybe not so much with trophies, but with gamer score, that eventually, one day, that gamer score will convert into something important. There's, you know,
But
but
that's
that's
never
the
will.
biggest
Yeah.
troll. It is.
Ever.
It is.
Yeah.
But it is like the secret, you know, that dangling little like.
You know, I
like
hear
Half-Life
if you
3.
get over 100. I was gonna say, I hear if you get over 100,000 gamer score, your penis increases by 0.25 inches. I hear that.
Just looking at it.
Yeah. Like, my God.
No, that's a
For the
fact.
for the
That's a
for
fact.
the radio
That's a
listeners,
fact.
I was given the O face.
I want to make sure. I want to make sure everybody knows it. That's actually a fact.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is important.
Staunton's like, I would never be at 3/4 of an inch now if not for that.
Oh, Jesus. I'm only at 3/4 of an inch when you stroke me, Ryan.
Oh, it's like half
This
minute.
took a
Because it's shrunk. Because it's gone down. It's like, no, not Ryan again.
All right.
penis has a
So
nice
I think
voice.
so. The
Should we
other
move
thing-
on?
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
What did you have to say?
No.
I was gonna say that the gamer score thing, to me, I guess I don't get it. Like the 1,000 gamer score and whether it invites you into raids or whatever. I think some of that is a little ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like
get too much.
Like in Halo, I remember you'd have like lobbies where it was like Halo 3. Some of them were multiplayer, like laser 6 people with 1 laser blast.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I was like,
And it was ridiculous because you just have lobbies where people would just artificially set this up.
Yep, of
You know,
course.
they'd all line up. Oh, hey, achievement lobby, we're gonna, get 3 headshots with 1 bullet and 6 kills with 1 laser. Like what? That does nothing. It just wasted my time to set this up to get an achievement. That's crap.
it's dumb.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
It's an interesting achievement, though. It's just that because you can artificially get it, there should be no achievement that can be obtained through artificial means. Understand? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It
Should there be achievements that are that ludicrous?
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually okay. Like in well, that's a bad. I was gonna say Battlefield because you have like 1,000-meter headshot or whatever. Except for I artificially did that. So I'm like, Chris, go stand on that side of Operation Firestorm.
You took like 16 shots at it.
Yeah,
You're
I
like,
did. I remember that. I remember you doing that forever. Yeah,
Is it- and I think
ridiculous.
I think it was. I was like, would somebody mind if I killed them with my EOD bot?
Yes,
you just stand there.
I remember that. Yeah.
You know, I mean, exactly. So that wasn't actually
Johnny 5 killed you. Congratulations.
But that wasn't
Yeah.
actually achievement though. That was a ribbon. That was not a ribbon.
Just for an unlock,
Same
wasn't it?
tags,
To
maybe.
give you-
Yeah, I remember.
rather
that.
than buying it, I think.
So, I mean, we say trophies in that, but, these can stand for other things as well. Like, unlocks are popular, right? Like Battlefield 3 has it. Battlefield 4, I hear that the unlocks are actually harder to get now. That it's going to take longer.
you're saying like weapon attachments or
It's harder to get things unlocked.
BDUs
I don't know
or-
if I like that.
I don't like that if they also allow you to buy it.
Right. If it's going to be harder,
Of course they will. Of course they'll microtransaction the shit out of it.
That
'Cause then they're
pisses
just-
me off. Because then they just troll the players that are playing it naturally.
Right.
I'm okay if it looks cooler, like flaming helmet in in Halo 3,
Mm-hmm.
the Hayabusa helmet or whatever.
Yeah, all you had to do was get all the skulls, though, to get that.
Sure. But I mean,
just all the skulls. That's all you had to do.
That was easy.
No, I mean,
It actually
okay.
was really easy.
Yeah,
It was no multiplayer.
I'm okay with that. What I think is trolling on players is when you have something where you have to have so much time invested, and then it's a game changer thing, like a weapon with
So you suck if you don't have it, basically.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's
then
pay to win.
now you're making me grind to get through the.
If
win,
you start playing
it's
Battlefield 3 and you come up against an AEK, you have
done.
no
Or
chance
like
of
you're in
beating
a
it.
jet and you don't have flares and you're fighting a guy who does have flares. You're effed.
You're done.
You have nothing but
I don't
bullets to
I
shoot.
don't even have missiles.
Yeah, that's not
That's
fun
how
to me.
little
That's
I
not
played.
fun to me.
Which Damon, Mike, he who shall not be named.
You named it.
Yeah, I did.
No. He can be named. He
Damon
just-
Lindelof?
Mr.
What?
Not appearing on this podcast.
Oh, okay.
He
He's lost.
he
David
did a sort of a cardinal sin, at least in my book, is on those planes. He bought it. He bought the pack to get you the get you the
No,
stuff
don't
because you couldn't
encourage
do it
this.
because you couldn't do it otherwise, or at least that's what he had. He couldn't do it.
I've got all the unlocks, and I
Yeah.
didn't spend $1 to do it.
No, me either.
But
It's hard, and
don't.
you get killed a lot.
you do.
I mean,
Yeah,
don't
you
get me
really
wrong.
do.
You do. You get killed a lot, but
Okay.
really the way to do it is just to shoot stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
Now here's
To do
here's
strafing
the
runs.
the other thing before this totally hijacks us, and I'll just throw this out there, and
All right.
we could move on or whatever you want to do.
We're
with
hijacked.
this.
We've been all over the map.
I- yeah.
But
No.
This
the
one-
how about this? All the stats that are in games.
Yeah.
It's also sort of like achievements. Like it behaves almost the same way. Kill to death ratios,
Yes.
win
Yeah.
rates.
Being able to reset kill to death.
That's dumb.
Is total shenanigans.
That
It
is
is.
dumb.
Yes.
That is dumb.
Oh,
I
yes.
hate that. I
It
honestly,
should be career
No, you know
kill
what?
to death.
If
and
it says
shouldn't matter.
if they allow to it, but it should show how many times it's been reset.
Yeah.
Even then, I don't like it because it doesn't. Okay,
Doesn't mean
if I
anything,
reset right now, I could. If I reset right now and I play like tank only in Battlefield 3, I will have a 4-1.
Yeah.
Which no one has a 4-1 that plays as little as I do. But so that's the thing, is that it can be totally artificially created, and people are going to look at that and they're going to be like,
Holy
well, he's
crap.
got a 4-1. Yeah, he reset it, but okay, whatever. So you don't see the fact that I'm actually 1-1 because I went like 0-18 my first game. You know?
This kind of comes down to how some of the matchmaking works as well. Like, I remember, keep bringing it back up, but like Halo,
Yeah.
I remember people that were stupidly good because they kept playing against level 50s or whatever the kernels or whatever
Yep.
the high end was on Halo.
They hated it.
Because they were playing against people their skill range. They weren't dominating, right? So what they'd do is they'd create a guest account or they'd re-roll a new account and they'd be level 1s and they would own.
Yeah, it was the
you
idea
know?
of killing noobs or whatever.
Right.
That's where I feel like the matchmaking choice wasn't necessarily always good, though. You know, sometimes maybe you do want to play against people that are better than you. If you're always playing the people that are your skill level, you're never going to advance because you don't learn anything,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but at the same time, then you get rolled over if you're somebody who's...
To be honest, I think it should be based on win-loss ratio or maybe even kill-death ratio.
Especially when they reset it.
In first-person shooter, well, no, you can't reset in this instance. But let's say you did Battlefield games. If you were winning all your games, you let's say you played 5 games in a row and you won every single one of them, you should be matched, I guess,
Right, matched up
with
people
other
that have also
with-
won.
that have also won several consecutive games in a row. Eventually, the system will balance itself.
Yeah, I agree. That makes
You know,
sense.
and it doesn't matter whether they're 50s or whether they're level 1s. You know, if they're winning constantly, there's got to be something that's going to balance
That way
that.
it lets people that keep getting rolled over at least get a chance to
Right,
try and
and
come
if
up.
you're, on the flip side, if you're losing consistently, there's only so many times you can lose. I mean, I'm sure that's what you're telling yourself
Before
after
you
like
throw
the 12th loss.
throw
You're
the
like,
damn
okay,
controller."
there's only so many people that have lost 12 times in a row.
Well, now the audience, I mean, the longer a game goes on, obviously you get that weaning out of the audience who doesn't, who is maybe not as good, and then you have nothing but the hardcore people left, and then then it's really hard to matchmake with it without it being unfair, regardless. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to
Super
hijack that.
tangent.
Yeah, super tangent. 5,000.
Awesome.
This reminds me a lot when we were talking about when we were talking about Prometheus.
No!
And,
Oh my God! Don't do it.
40 minutes later.
Yeah. I believe everybody's brains who's listening to this would explode.
Yes.
And it would sound like this. All right. Okay.
There goes the
Okay.
normalization. Right?
Yes.
Damn it, normalization.
Gone.
Nate.
All right.
So, outside of games, latest inventions and stuff that are coming out have been... There's a big focus on 3D printers.
Cool.
And I kind of like this idea. Like, of being able to Star Trek replicate something. Mm-hmm. You know, so maybe it's something that you wished you would have had in your childhood. Maybe.
Like a transformer?
Maybe like a transformer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You could replicate it.
But how close to, with 3D printers, are we getting to the point where we can replicate something? I mean, there's nothing right now where I can just scan this delicious A&W root beer
and then drink it because
and then be able to drink it.
Remolecularizing, you know. Right now,
Right.
what we're talking about with 3D printers is it's doing a layer at a time
Yep,
with same
correct.
material. Now,
Like-
this shows like a
car.
an F1 car.
yeah,
in
like
there.
they remade a car, right?
And F1 does 3D printing for some of their stuff because they need their there's some components that can't be positively measured. You know, they have some weird either they have to be like fluid measured or something like that to know whether it was made correctly inside. Because of the part configuration, you can't actually put a gauge to it and know whether that part was made that way.
That's
so the
crazy.
only way they can do it is 3D printing with sort of exotic metals. So they have a 3D printer that does Inconel, which is like an exhaust material, and it's coming into huge effect in this next season of F1 because they're going back to turbos. So some of this stuff is pretty interesting because the problem though is you're only ever dealing with one material. Like in this, you're dealing with sort of
Right,
just
like
resin
some
plastic.
Plastic stuff, yeah.
With F1, they were only Inconel. There's not like metals because you have to do some sort of joint or you have to do some sort of assembly there for most complex parts. Even your transformer, if you tried to do that, you'd have to print an arm.
Right,
you'd
and
have to
that's what
print-
they're doing, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you'd still
As
have
far
to
as
come
I know.
up with how they connect together. And some of these people are getting pretty creative with how, some of these parts are working. And one interesting thing I found is because of the process, because it's actually like a plastic weld, it is stronger than if you made it in a mold. I mean, it's the same method of why welds are stronger on metal than what the surrounding metal is. You know what I mean? So you get failure points around that, but these are all welds. So the plastics are much harder, much sturdier than if they had injection molded these parts or whatever. So it's pretty interesting that they can do that, especially for like hobbyists that want to create a mold or something like that. Whether you got to make a negative first, and then you have sand molds, and then baking in an oven. This kind of stuff. I know this particular one that we're looking at is a very advanced one. Probably not one you would find sitting on somebody's desk at home.
Right.
But you can get into ones now for like $1,000 or $2,000.
It's great for prototyping, right? I mean,
That's
that's
what
what
I've been
you could use it to engineer something and then potentially create a prototype before you go show it to investors or whatever, in that regard.
Fixing something on, like, say, a transformer or whatever, where all you're doing is, the arm is off, so we'll just reprint
a new arm and put it in there.
and snap it on.
Is
and be good to go.
it becoming the VCR now? Like where it scares the companies that produce these things that, oh, look, they can do it on their own now. They can tape their own shows. They can do whatever. So you think that 3D printing represents that, or you think it's still too complex and...
You still sort of have to be an engineer, though, to design reliable parts.
Yeah, but you could go download a template, right? I could go online and somebody who's engineer has put it up there and say, oh, here's a transformer arm, download, print, or here's a gun, print, or something like that. That's what a lot of people are saying.
There is a guy out there, I guess Jay Leno has like a $300,000 3D printer for car parts. Because he's got
For
so
his
many
EcoJet
cars. But he's got so many cars that you
Make
can't
the parts.
get parts for. And so they come in that huge price range where his will do metal. As opposed to the one that you get on your desk that just does a type of plastic.
Right.
But then there's also a guy I was reading about that he downloaded and is printing out of wood a Bentley. A classic Bentley.
Wow.
Out of wood.
Of wood. The only
It's
thing
just
in it...
compressed wood and it's using glue for each layer, or how?
I don't know the exact details. I mean, because the 3D... No, but 3D printer is not just the layering. There's also...
Yeah.
Shockingly,
that's
it
much more...
actually weighs less than the Bentley.
no. But he's gonna put like a Skyline engine in his wooden Bentley, and so he's got to have certain things. But again, it's the 3D printer is not just the layering. That when you've got like the metal or the other materials like that, you're going to have you've got more traditional manufacturing.
All right, so I don't know. I think it's kind of. It's certainly interesting that they can get into this stuff. I know there was a guy that was getting in trouble for printing essentially plastic guns.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Corey, I believe is his name, from Defense Distributed is what he's created. He's actually a law student, and he's printing receiver parts. So it's the part of the gun
That's normally composite,
right? And it goes to.
Didn't I see this on a Clint Eastwood movie? Just thought I'd throw that out there. Clint Eastwood with John Malkovich.
Oh,
the wooden gun.
In the Line of Fire.
Yes, in the Line of Fire. I thought so. I couldn't remember. I thought
random 90s.
I know,
reference.
right? Pulling them out there, kids.
So
you go watch them Clint Eastwood movies.
Yeah, it's like a resin type thing. But I don't know what he's using as far as what kind of material, but they have, excuse me. They have polymer lowers that they've been making for a long time. So I don't know if that's what they're using, is the same kind of polymer. But the federal government recognizes that if you make one for your own personal use, there's no problems with that.
I'm not entirely sure you're right about that because I believe non-metallic firing pins are illegal.
Well, it is on certain things. And that's just in the state of New York. They're using regular components for metal components inside
so the barrel
gun.
is still...
The barrel still is gun, is metal, and the only thing that they're changing is just the plastic.
I think they've made a fully plastic gun that has
the Liberator is the one you're
shot
talking
capability.
About. Yeah, the Liberator is the one you're talking about, but it fails after the first shot.
Sometimes you only need one shot.
That's true.
Well, there's
fire.
They were. I mean, there are legitimate problems with this if you go a full plastic gun, right? But this is nothing new. Like, the Mafia's used zip guns for a while that were air compressor based, right? So it was like
I saw this in a movie, too.
Really?
No Country for Old Men.
You know what we should stop doing?
Using movie references?
No. So, I mean, I guess
they were also using ice bullets, so they melted and left no trace.
Oh, crap. I can't remember. Oh.
I think that's like every crime television show.
That was like an NCIS or something. Not NCIS. So. It was like CSI. They used the
We just found
bullets.
puddles of water.
That was...
No, I don't know. But I mean, do you think... From that standpoint, are 3D printers any scarier? Do you think it's just...
No.
Yeah, I mean, because still, you're going to have the crazies out there that they'll find a way to do something. I still think that guns are one of the least scary weapons out there that you could produce with,
3D printers.
I'm
with less.
3D printing a battle axe.
I just mean with
To
spending less than $2,000, you could create something way more deadly than a gun.
Yeah.
So
price per comparison, though. Like, I mean, if we're talking like what worries people are like felons who are not able to have guns and then get a 3D printer to circumvent that rule.
It's
Talk
just
about
silly,
an expensive
though.
buy-in versus buying a 38 on the street that's unmarked.
You could buy a throwaway for a lot less than that.
Jeez.
So, I mean, my experience when I go down to the corner black market gun store.
Right. Word on the street is 3D printers are too expensive still. Wait for them to come down.
I was going to say, so the argument, that would be the point, right? That we're still not at consumer-based level for this, right? It's still
not only that, but this is nowhere near viable, usable technology for anybody here. Nobody here has any reason to have a 3D printer.
If you had a 3D printer, what would you make?
What would I make?
Yeah, if you had a 3D printer,
probably just make toys.
Transformers and stuff.
Transformers, Valkyries, those kinds of things.
Would it be worth $2,000?
It would be.
I don't think the buy-in right now is decent enough. I would probably wait until they're like $500-$600, and then I would probably take the plunge. But what about like copyright infringement for that kind of thing? I mean, do you think that like Hasbro goes and says, "Well, wait a minute, we have a design like this. Why would you use that?" And could they sue them then based on a design?
That's a good point.
For something that's in the home.
Or make it on a... No. They couldn't sue the person, but they could go to the person who put the plans up online. Like I said, if you're not the engineer and you don't know what you're doing with this, like me, I wouldn't be able to go on there and like design it and make it in CAD or something and then put the print up there. But if somebody made that, they could go after that person. It's no different than any other copyright infringement now, right?
I guess I'd say that if you're making it for yourself, you know what I mean? That there is the issue here of why not just buy the Transformer or whatever, and there might be production issues or whatever that would prevent you from doing that. But if you're reselling the design, that's a different issue.
Yeah,
if you're making money on somebody else's design that you ripped off and then sold online, like, look, print your own Hasbro toys or whatever.
Right.
That would be, I think, a legal problem. But I don't know what the laws are. I mean, you might have issues even making stuff for yourself, but I don't think that there should be. I think if making it for yourself.
If you listen to a song and you play the song on your guitar, that's not illegal.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you play the song and get paid for it,
nope, that's not illegal either.
Okay,
it's a cover band.
All right. No. So then, but
CD.
If you release it on an album, so here we are. So there's various levels of acceptability.
Legality,
So if you print off your Transformer, assuming that you can, as long as you don't sell them, you're probably okay to do it all you want.
Right.
So I think this is not replicator technology at all at this point, though. Nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Well, it's starting to get to that. I mean, this has got to be the early stages, right?
Excited about it.
Gen 2 of this has got to be one that does plastics and, let's say, aluminum, right? Or plastics and steel. I'm guessing aluminum first because way lower temperatures that you have to worry about. But and then you've got maybe assembly arms.
So you could basically make your own soda can. I'm holding up a can for those radio listeners. I like to hear radio. Like you could make your own soda and then bottle it, right? Or whatever, using an aluminum can, or make your own cans and then put it in there. But
don't call me Radio Unit 91.
I got news for you, though.
Yeah.
This thing cost like 2 cents.
Oh, yeah, to make.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, though. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
we get to the consumer
for
price.
you to 3D print it.
But at the same time, I mean, this stuff all comes from somewhere. There are machines out there that make these things.
Yeah, exactly.
So the 3D printer just kind of centralizes that operation, but we're so far away from being able to make, say, a microphone. We're not even anywhere close to being able to walk up to, your 3D printer in your house.
It has to start from somewhere, right? I mean, it literally has to start from somewhere.
You have to take the raw materials and put them into whatever different forging or creative, machining process to come out, and then assembly for a microphone. And this 3D printers is nowhere near the ability. It can print out a little statue of Abraham Lincoln just fine.
Yeah.
It can't. Or an F1 car.
Right.
Or even a plastic gun, but that plastic gun is still just components that have been assembled.
Yeah. Right. We still, you're right. We're still far off.
We are so far away.
It hasn't gotten there yet. And a lot of those, like I said, with the lower that he printed, had to have regular components in it. So a metal firing pin and a metal bolt. The upper was still regular.
So it's
I like
really not as big a deal as
somebody
they
was
make it out to
printing
be.
like AR mags. That actually worked.
Right, but there's still the spring was added. Something
but
that
again,
they couldn't.
I mean, you can get from like an industrial supply warehouse. You can get the spring for
like $4 or $5 maybe tops.
less for that
for
kind
like
of spring.
10.
Yeah, $4 or $5 for a pack of 100.
Yeah.
That's you buy in bulk.
It's pretty interesting though. I mean, because what will be really intriguing is when the next step. So you can 3D print some object. Let's say even these figurines that we have here, and then when the machine itself will also properly print them or paint them. Via via spray, ink, or via whatever. Because when you get this, I mean, clearly, as it shows, it's some sort of like plastic resin, like a prototype style thing. And still you have an artist that's sitting there painstakingly painting it or whatever. Even if you did your Transformers, I mean,
it would come
you'd
out
have
just
to
like
get it,
that.
right? You'd
and
have
I've
to
seen
get it
some
painted.
of the designs from some of their new ones that they're working on.
Yeah.
And they look just like that. I mean, there's a couple of different color schemes for the resins and stuff that they're using, but yeah,
But really, the right thing would be like an automated airbrush or something like that. So if it was doing some of this stuff, it's like, okay, queuing pieces, painting the pieces, whatever.
Right.
If we want to make an analogy, Oculus Rift is to holodeck. 3D printer is not as close to Replicator as Oculus Rift is to holodeck. 3D printer is still
I think I could probably agree.
way down that road.
Yep.
I mean, we're not there yet, but I think we're going to that point.
I think your analogy makes sense. We should just say everything that we're getting now from modern technology is from Star Trek and Star Wars.
I mean, well, it has lightsaber. The lightsaber
right?
stuff.
Yeah, lightsaber, and then the folding phones.
That makes perfect sense, though, because all engineers are geeks, and therefore they're going to go to what they know in their source material. And
exactly.
You know, there's a story of like Babylon 5 actually being approached by NASA to discuss how they designed the fighters that were used. Because of the way they moved, it was very realistic.
It was Newtonian physics. They were able to spin in space.
Exactly.
And
yeah. So they were like, tell us about the design on that because we're curious.
Yeah.
That's cool. Obviously we now have those. Yeah. They're flying around all over.
In Mars.
Awesome.
No, I think maybe even in once we get into some more exotic materials like the Inconel, I found pretty interesting because you can't work with that in normal. There's really only a handful of people that hand work that type of material. So when they came out with 3D printers that could do it was a game changer, even for the big guys. Right? Mm-hmm. That was the machine that could do it. Then it wasn't some big forge. It wasn't. I mean, they 3D printed those parts because they're so one-off. And so, where do I think this could go? Space industry,
absolutely.
Industrial 3D printers, not something that's accessible to us, but I think 3D printers could help mankind more on a very
They probably are honestly already using them, right?
I guarantee they are, the expensive ones. But it makes perfect sense that if you're going to have a base on the moon or Mars, you want to have the highest end 3D printer you can because if something breaks, you can't have replacement parts for everything, but you can just print it. You're in much better shape.
Well, plus the inputs to these are, you don't have to be careful with them at all, right? It's like a block of resin for this stuff, So let's say that's the case, that we've got a base we've got a base on the moon, or we've got, International Space Station, and they're like, hey, I lost my widget number 45. Oh, okay, well, we'll just send you more widget number 45s. Oh, crap, now widget 57 broke. So if they have like a 3D printer, they could just print these things and just send them supplies of what to print. So that would be
giant resin blocks, blocks of steel or whatever they're using for printing.
Right, exactly.
Energon cubes.
Yes.
Energon cubes.
You're right. Until they get to the point where we can have multiple materials and assembly, and some kind of final production, it's just that's kind of going to be the holy grail.
Yep.
When we have
but
machine,
then it'll still have like wheels and stuff where they function because they
on a bearing. They'll actually make a bearing.
It's pretty cool.
But
I just it's hard for me to get too excited about this because I just feel like there's no practical application for this yet.
Yeah, not yet.
There's hobby applications.
Right.
There's prototype applications.
Yep. That's huge.
And there's obviously specialty applications.
Specialty replacement or,
Yeah, so, but this is not something that is realistic for, you're not going to walk into a medical device manufacturer and see just a room filled with 3D printers. You won't, because it can't create what you need to create or the materials that you need to create it and do that kind of level of final process production.
Actually, I'd be a little shocked if in 5 years, like the biomets and those sorts of, because they're sort of specialty,
fleshy type,
right? Because
heart replacements or things.
Because they do that now with stainless, right?
Yeah, but they're doing that they're not doing that with 3D printers. They're doing that with traditional production machinery.
Yeah,
correct. But there's a bunch of machining that goes into making it that way. Maybe in 5 years, I'm not aware of, because of how stainless operates, I'm not aware of a stainless steel 3D printer yet, just because of the properties of it. You can't. Right. You can't weld on it.
It would get to really hot in order to get in there and actually make it work.
Yeah, even when it's shaping it, it's just there's just too much going on there.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I do think even when you get to the point where it can do multiple types of materials and maybe even doing some airbrush painting on it, maybe even fine printing, like. Maybe you're putting your warning labels on there, with some sort of ink or whatever. We're still massively far away from a replicator, aren't we? Because the replicator is actually
energy matter conversion,
right? Is a
we're not even in the ballpark. We're not
ballpark.
even we're not even playing the same sport. So
right.
Either way,
awesome. All right. Well, I think that concludes episode 5. For now, be sure to comment.
For now, we're going
to start this up in 15 minutes. We'll take a break.
What I meant by that is 3D printers. We might revisit this in another year or two and see how far we've come.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I can see this.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so be sure to like us on Facebook, facebook.com, Fairly Awesome Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, it's FAPcast. Leave comments, like video. Do it. And I think that'll do it.
You want to.
That's right. All right, see you guys.
Yeah. All right, everybody's in. The camera tilted. Apparently Nate did it.
Yeah, I did bump it on the way back.
Good job, Nate.
On the way back this way.
You fucking touched it.
Did you fucking touch it?
Did you fucking touch it?
Whoa.
What?
Really?
There we go. We're gonna do this. I mean, I'm gonna adjust the camera a little bit. I mean, Ryan's gonna sit on Josh's lap.
Yeah, we can make this happen.
Now I feel better.